Welcome back to the What?
Go that way. Get in front of your microphone.
Oh, shit.
There you go.
Oh, we ready?
Yeah.
That's our first retake.
It might be.
It
Let's
is.
do a show. Let's do a show. We can start it like that. Just roll it.
Just
from
roll
there.
it. They'll love
Yeah,
it.
it's fine.
Yeah. Welcome to Lucky 13 Podcast, where we talk about all things people and profit and business and a bunch of other stuff that has nothing to do with that. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Lantz.
I'm Josh Hauser. Good to see everybody.
It's great to be back. Beautiful day out today. Starting to get toasty warm here in central Indiana. The
I can't wait to
humidity's
see
coming in.
a different color purple on these arms here soon.
Yeah. Well, I wear the black so you can't see
Yeah.
the sweat.
I just like that people see it, then they won't hug me.
Okay. Okay. Well, see, I like the love. you
Oh,
know?
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're rolling into summer.
Love it.
Let's talk about what the summer plans are in the Hauser household.
Goodness gracious, we got kind of a busy one. I got a wedding coming up, so the oldest daughter, the whole family's going to Pigeon Forge because they watched Will Ferrell say that he wanted to get married on a mountain, so they're going to get married on a mountain. My son's going to officiate it, the oldest son, so that's a week, and then we get back for a week, and then we go to San Diego for a week for soccer because there's not enough soccer fields at this place called Grand Park, so we go to San Diego for a national tournament out there, and then we come back, and then as long as we play well at that national tournament, we go to Richmond for some more soccer. So it's great to be a redhead sitting in the sun at soccer games because you do not get sunburned at all. It works out well.
Well, there's a couple of alignment things. So I get this. So my daughter dated this guy when they were 19. Okay, so his name's Parker.
Let's look him up.
And no, he's a good kid from Brownsburg. Okay, played soccer at Brownsburg.
Yeah, use small words. Go ahead.
And so they dated for like a year when they were 19, and they were both young 19-year-old idiots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so they broke up, and then about 8 months ago they got back together. And so
Wow.
about a week and a half ago, he calls me up and he asked me out for a beer.
Uh-oh.
And he popped the question.
Come on.
Now, my daughter knows this, so like she
Okay.
may listen to the podcast, probably doesn't,
Yeah.
but she knows he did this. So it's eminent that he's going to pop the question this summer. So
And did you give the blessing?
I gave the blessing. He's a
Okay.
great kid. He's a software engineer. They both have really grown up and matured.
How
a lot,
about
so,
that?
So they're both 26.
Are you
now.
ready?
Yeah, man. I like him.
You're gonna cry.
Yeah, he's a good kid. In fact, she was at a bachelorette party this weekend, and we called him up and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Nothing." I said, "We're like, come over and watch a Pacer game with Julie and I." So
Oh,
it was
that's
really
awesome.
fun. Yeah, so that was really good.
You're gonna cry.
100%.
Yeah.
Like 100%. I'm
Yeah.
a daddy's girl. A girl.
Have you heard the song "Yours" by Post Malone?
No.
Everybody at home got a daughter. Listen to the song "Yours" by Post Malone.
Okay.
I'm telling you, once you listen to that song, that'll prepare you.
Yeah. So my youngest daughter, Josie, she's in South Korea right now.
Oh.
Okay. So she's getting ready to go. She's our baby. She's 20, goes to IU Indianapolis, majoring in clinical social work. And they have this program over in South Korea. So 9 months ago, she comes and she goes, "Dad, I want to go to South Korea." And Josie is the most awesome person in the world. Like, she loves everybody and all, but she's a little naive. Like, she's a little unaware to the world sometimes and trusting and all that. So
Yep.
we're a little apprehensive. So we decided she's going to go. Like, whether we say she can go or not, she's going. Like, she's an adult. So we're helping her get ready. And I said, "Josie, there's 4 things you got to protect with your life when you're over there."
Let's write that down.
4 things.
4 things.
Number 1 is your passport. Because if you lose your passport, you become South Korean. You're not coming home.
Yeah.
Number 2 is your cell phone. Okay.
Got it.
Number 3 is your EpiPen, because she happens to be allergic to nuts.
I understand.
Like, deathly allergic.
Yeah, and I know that guy.
And number 4 is your credit card. Because if you got your credit card, you can get cash advances, you can get, whatever you want, right? Within 18 hours, she loses the credit card.
All right.
$275 later and a UPS trip,
Yeah.
she gets the new credit card.
Got it.
But within 18 hours,
That's pretty good.
My daughter loses.
So,
the one
but
thing.
she doesn't. That's of the 4.
Of the 4, that's probably the one you ought to lose.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
But interesting, she's over there studying the healthcare system over there, and they have a socialized healthcare system. So it was interesting. She actually got a little ill while she was there, had to go to the doctor. She saw a doctor within this is not a political comment or anything. It's just different. Saw a doctor
judge you
within
later.
5 minutes of walking in the thing. The doctor charged her $15 for the visit and $17 for the medication.
Goodness
Because they
gracious.
treat even visitors to the country like they do their own citizens relative to healthcare. So it was kind of interesting. Not only is she over there learning it, but she was able to experience some of it. And she got to walk right up to the border of North Korea and South Korea, the DMZ zone.
She did.
Which was kind of
Oh
bizarre,
yeah,
too.
that's got to be awesome.
Lots of good things.
Well, the
happen,
reason
for
why
sure.
I think we went down this path is how do you, let's just talk about this. Entrepreneurs in general, and we all have summer plans, just like we talked about. We walk into the summers, and some of us are going to take a lot of time off and try to spend some family time. We're going to go to South Korea. We're going to go all over. And some of us, this is our busy season.
Yeah.
Either way, here's what I've discovered in my 20 plus years of entrepreneurship and working with other entrepreneurs is it's about the disciplines going into those seasons. I see it happen in fourth quarter, and I see it happen at the beginning of summer. The disciplines get shaky. And so I want to talk about rules that we can think about today, but I'm interested. Have you ever noticed that in your entrepreneur journey and have had thoughts about that in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, and I have it personally, and then I also you experience it from the other side, like when you're selling to businesses.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Getting them on the calendar?
getting them on the calendar
Goodness
during
gracious.
the summer, the fourth quarter is always a really difficult thing.
Correct.
And so how do you navigate around that? But I know that's not necessarily where you're going, but I feel like a lot of businesses deal with that because you get into this overwhelm. And so I think one of the things that happens a lot of times is it sneaks up on people.
It does.
One of the things that happens is that June 1st comes on June 1st every year.
It happens to be that way.
But for whatever reason, we don't plan for it as much.
No, you run through May like you run through December.
Yeah.
I've noticed that with so many companies.
Yeah. And then you hit the summer, and then it's like, well, wait a minute, I haven't planned for it.
Yep.
I know, my wife planned these vacations that are coming up because the kids are off school and all that, but I haven't planned enough from a business perspective to support all of that or to support my team or things like that. How about you?
Yeah, I always found that Memorial Day seemed like I ran to that 3-day weekend. And then that 3-day weekend got over, and then I had no, let's call it compass, no direction of where I was going to go next. I was like, I'm just going to work hard to Memorial Day. You get to spring break, and then just sprint to Memorial Day, and then just celebrate it, and then you come out, and it's June 1st-ish, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, now I'm going to sprint to July 4th, but how do I maximize this June? Because I have found that June is an odd month with a lot of my entrepreneurs, and so
How so?
we just in general because they're making the transition. Kids being home, vacation, all of a sudden the access to kids is more easy. You got weddings like we're talking about here, summer vacations planned, families, whatever. And how do you get your own discipline? And so you either gravitate one or two ways. You either go to the too far extreme of I'm going to spend all my time and just really try to catch up with family, or I'm going to lean into work at a level so that when July 4th comes off, I can take that break. And the key is, to me, is how do you set what I'd like to call the 8x8x8 rule of using that throughout the year so you can stay balanced either way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
to you?
absolutely. And we've done a couple of episodes, I think, on time management or blocking or whatever. And there's some things that I'll bring up as we get into this because I think a lot of this is about preparation.
Yeah, it is.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And I've actually challenged my team. You know how you have this you set up this perfect calendar for yourself, and then over time you just get this, let's call it like calendar creep.
You do.
And our buddy Brian
Neal talks about it all the time.
about how you just have to be so obsessive about your calendar.
Yep.
And my team, we were all in a leadership team meeting about 4 weeks ago, and everybody was just looked worn out.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm looking at everybody's calendars, like in the room, we're looking at calendars, and I'm like, there's no breathing room at all. And so I challenged them all. I said, by July 1, I want you to rethink your entire calendar.
Yep.
And be religious about how you protect that. But we'll talk about that either. But
I love it.
Why don't you start to unpack the 8x8x8 rule?
Let's do it
for
at a
us.
high level easy.
Yeah.
Let's start with 8x8x8 really breaks out into these categories. 8 hours of work. And when I say work, hard work, not 8 hours of being there, 8 hours of actually putting in that work. If you can do that every day. So I understand.
So the 8x8 talks about 8
3
hours,
segments.
8 hours, 8
Correct.
hours,
Let's
the
break
24 hours
Let's
of your
break
life.
that 24 hours.
Okay.
Very
Yeah.
good math.
Yeah.
Good. I didn't know how you did math. That's
We
awesome.
did. We did.
You didn't have to take your shoes off for that, especially when you're missing a toe. We'll talk about that in a different episode. All right, so 8 hours of hard work, 8 hours of just really intense of what I'm going to call good sleep. Like not phone in front of your face, not TV on, even if it's just laying still, but 8 hours of just letting your body shut down, especially when we get to this sunlight phase. I find a lot of people's sleep schedules change in June, and they're not going to bed till 11 o'clock because it's not dark till 11, and then sunlight's up at 5, and all of a sudden, and then they can't understand why they're tired because they're living by the light, if you will. I can't imagine living in Alaska right now. And then the last 8 hours are spending on what we like to call the F's, the H's, and the S's. 3 hours with your family, friends, and faith. Just 3 hours of planned time where I'm going to make sure that I'm spending time there. 3 hours of your health, hygiene, and hobbies. What do you like to do? You like to go golfing, fishing, go for walks, whatever that is. You can tie that in that health side.
Yeah.
And then the 3 hours of, we call it soul, service, and smile. What are the things that allow you to do that? So breaking that down a little bit. So you got 8, 8, 8, and then there's a 3x3 there.
Yeah.
But let's just use that as a start talking point.
I know, Matt, that's actually 25.
Yeah, that's nice. I like how you're doing the math there.
Yeah, there you go.
But
Okay.
that's not.
I get your
That's not 3 hours in each one.
I know. Yeah. Interesting. You know, one of the things that just kind of dawned on me, like, let's go through these different types, and
Yeah.
let's talk about some traps that people can get caught in,
Like it.
and some best practices maybe. So let's start with 8 hours of good sleep.
8 hours.
And one of the things I thought of, you know, we ought to get Jack Ham and Jackson Lantz in here,
Absolutely.
to do a podcast. They're from Infit Club here in Indianapolis, high-end personal training facility.
Correct.
Because this sleep thing, we ought to have them come in and talk about, like, what are the top 8 to 10 things that executives ought to be thinking about their own health.
Love it.
But one of the things that I hear Jackson talk about all the time, and this really came from, I remember when he was giving me a tour of the IU strength and conditioning facility.
Yep.
There are signs up all over that place about sleep.
Yep.
And how sleep is the game changer for recovery, for focus, for energy, for all of these things. And, you know, Coach Wellman, who used to be the strength coach there, and now he's at the Giants, used to preach sleep, 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 because you can't let your body recover. And then you can't let your body recover from your work day or your workout or whatever you're doing unless you've got that sleep.
Yeah, it's. I've heard it. Two things said together. I've always heard if you start to feel off, you check your hydration and check your sleep.
Yeah.
And because your computer system has to shut down, you got to let that shut down and your body shut down. And then if you're not hydrating correctly, which is a different conversation, different day. And so, how do we really focus in on? Are we really taking sleep intentional, or is it just I'm going to stay up late for the Pacers game and then just survive? And then what we don't realize is that turns into a habit really quick. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and your mind's still going, and it's 6 o'clock in the morning, you're up and you're going out again. And you don't realize just depriving that 1 hour or 2 hours, that it does have a compounding effect. And now rather than running through the tape to July 4th, you were limping across the line. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I got to be honest, I struggle with this one. Back in my younger years, even with having kids and all this, like getting 8 hours of sleep was tough to do.
Yeah.
And I was one of those people that could get 4 or 5 and still, I felt, I could function really, really well. But as I get older, it seems to be it has more of an impact on me.
Do you know when? And that's the key. I'm gonna when I read this study, it's not just about 8 hours of sleep. It's just the mechanism to say, are you intentional about getting enough sleep?
Yeah.
And I will call it the right sleep.
Yeah.
Some people need 6, some people need 10.
Yeah.
But you got to know when you're not getting the right sleep, and you will feel it not just the day after, but 2, 3, and 4 days after. Yeah. There's a compounding effect because you'll get into you got to make. I know it sounds so just over focused, but as an entrepreneur, if you're not getting that sleep, you are a ripple effect to everybody else you touch. When you don't get enough sleep, I want you to think about you dropped a rock in the middle of the pond, and those ripples are hitting everybody in your organization because you didn't get right.
Yeah, and I've heard, again, I struggle in this area a lot, and I rely on my son Jackson to kind of coach me on this a little bit. But one of the things he's also talked about is sleeping the same hours every night.
It's
getting your body consistent to, okay, I go to bed at 10 o'clock or I go to bed at 11, whatever time it is, going to bed kind of at that same time so your body becomes used to sleeping at the same time.
When I traveled in corporate America, jet lag is when I learned all of a sudden that getting out of that rhythm is real.
Yeah.
And so when I'm home, you got to stay in that rhythm. Not to mention, it throws your kids off and your family off when you're home too. If you get out of rhythm with them, then all of a sudden, not only you're out of rhythm at work, you're out of rhythm at home, and now you have those parallel journeys will follow, whether they're going up and to the left or down and to the right.
Yeah. Well, we'll put a pin in this kind of, when we talk about good sleep, and then there's the 3
Yeah, let's bring in an expert
healthy
on that.
things. We should bring those guys in.
Or we could actually have a 20-minute video of the two of us sleeping together. Not together, in different rooms, separate beds,
we'll set up a camera.
Lucy and
give it to Unger, he can do the 2 cameras.
Don't you think that'd be amazing?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you wear a mask, by the way, sleep apnea mask?
I do not.
I don't either.
Yeah, I don't have sleep apnea.
I don't know if I do. No one said anything.
Someone else in my household might have it. But
Yeah. I know. All I know is that if I happen to make a sound, I get pushed.
Okay.
So, yeah. We'll just keep that between us.
All right, so let's go next to the 3 Fs, 3 Hs, and 3 Ss. So that's 3 Fs, which are family, friends, and faith. 3 Hs, health, hygiene, and hobby. 3 S's, soul, service, and smile. So let's start with family, friends, and faith. What are some of the things that you've got in your life that you carve out for.
Yeah, well, here's the beauty of why we're called Lucky 13. A lot of our kids have already got things planned for us, right? But it's one thing to go to an event; it's another thing to be present at it.
Yeah.
And so when I think when they talk about those 8 hours spent on the 3 Fs, be present with your family, not just be there.
Yeah.
And so really honing in on that. And then, do you have friends that you need to touch base with, whether it's a phone call, FaceTime, or go spend time? But be present when you're with your friends, and don't force it like, I've got to go to the Pacers game. Make it more of, I get to go to the Pacers game, and really lean into the time of no work talk. Let's talk about life. Do you remember the time when, blah, 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 blah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then, of course, I'm not going to force anybody's religion, but spend that time on whatever your piece is. So if it's just sitting in quiet, if it's sitting in journaling, if it's sitting just in the Word, whatever makes your time, make sure you have intentional time set, because you don't realize those resets are so critical.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's, we with having so many kids like that we both do, you still got 4 that you're still raising.
And the 2 college kids are at home right now.
And I'm kind of done, at least most
Grocery
of them are.
bill sucks.
Oh, no. Yeah, best part of Jackson moving out here in 2 weeks is going to be the pay increase on the grocery bill.
Absolutely.
Right? He eats us out of house and home, that's for sure. But is really taking that intentional time, and I've said on this podcast before, like religiously since the day Julie and I, we just celebrated our 27th anniversary last Friday.
Man.
And religiously since we started dating, we take a minimum of one day or one night a week, and we go out and we have dinner or whatever and reconnect. But I think that also matters with friendships too.
Absolutely.
Like we were built to be in community and in relationship in this world. There's nothing else that really matters. And it can't just be relationship with our kids. I think I've shared with you before that we made an intentional decision when the kids were young that we were going to be there. Yep. And we had to sacrifice some social life, and we had to say no to going to the Pacer game or whatever it is, so that we could be there at night for our kids, so that when something was going on in their world, they could feel comfortable coming down and talking to us.
Absolutely.
But what we've been able to do since we started to become empty nesters is rekindle that relationships with friends and things like that, and I think that's really important.
And I see summertime. Let's say you're not on vacation. I'll just use last night. We came home. We had no soccer practices last night. It was confusing for us because there wasn't a plan in place.
Yeah.
And so what happens is my kids just go out and play, and my wife and I are like, what are we supposed to do? And so this is like hit me right in the face last night of when you come home, what does present mean when there aren't plans made for you? And so those families, I'll talk to those AAU families. When you don't have AAU plans made, are you actually being intentional about being present, or are you recovering in the living room or just doing something to stay busy rather than staying productive in that side? Yeah,
and I've talked to a lot of people that are approaching empty nesters because I've been kind of going through it. And they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And I'm like, you need to figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if not, you're just going to fall into a whole bunch of bad habits.
It's ironic. What you're talking about becoming an empty nester, when we do studies on entrepreneurs who sell their business, 73% of them regret it in a year. I actually think parents go through that. I've never seen a study on it. Maybe we'll do homework on that. Not for this podcast, just in general. But what does it mean when you're an empty nester, when you don't have a plan? 1 year from now, you're trying to have more kids? I mean, what's the...
No, that's not happening.
Yeah, same here.
One last thing I want to throw in here. We got to keep going here, but these things come to mind. When Parker came to me and said, I love your daughter and I want to ask her to marry me, I said, my wife and I, we have 3 things that are important to us. And the answer is yes, but I want you to keep these 3 things in mind. And one of those things was, and this is a little odd, I've said this to some people and they look at me like, and I'm like, your marriage has to come before everything, including your children. I don't know the exact statistic, but it's crazy how many couples get divorced when their kids go to college.
Oh, yeah.
Because the kid goes off to college, they drive their car back home after dropping them off and going, hi, I'm Mike.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
And they've not been cultivating any type of relationship.
I'm your kid's father. You're your kid's mother. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the same thing happens then with empty nester because they're looking at each other going, and Julie and I, we still like each other a lot, right?
By the way, don't think that doesn't have a ripple effect on the business.
Oh.
I mean, they feel it there too.
Yeah. And your kids, like now they're in college and their parents are getting divorced. And listen, I get it. Divorce happens, 50% of all marriages end in divorce, but cultivating that relationship from day one and putting that marriage first.
So that's one. Give me 2.
Yeah. Number 2 was you need to protect my daughter. Yeah. Physically, mentally, emotionally. Yep. She's a very strong person, but if I'm gonna, that's been my job for the last 26 years, and if you're gonna ask for her hand in marriage, then then you've got to take on that job. And the third thing, and this might sound chauvinistic, and she has her career and all of this, but you need to provide for her. I don't want my daughter living in a homeless shelter, and I don't want her starving, and I don't want, and he's a very hard worker and all of those. But those three things are like, if
Marriage first.
protection,
Protector,
and
and
you've
provider.
got to be a protector and a provider.
See,
And-
I'm glad you said that, because my answer to Corbin was yes, and I'm not afraid to go to prison. I think this would have been a better answer. So,
all right.
a lot to learn there.
So then we've got health, health, hygiene, and hobby. We don't have to spend, we won't spend a ton of time on the
bring
health.
somebody in.
Yeah. Or
I
the
love
hygiene.
that. Because obviously two of us are pillars.
Svelte.
I can't believe we're
Double
even wearing
XLs.
shirts.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. Baby oil in this next one? Nobody?
Hobby, I think, is an important thing, though. And I struggle in this one, too, because this could sound really weird, but my hobby also is my business right now. Because I went through this phase where I had my business, but I also had all these kids, right? And so I was doing a really good job kind of integrating the two and balancing the two. And then once I have a lot more time on my hands, because my kids have launched and all of that, I really love working in my business. And so
Is it too much?
No, like
Okay.
I dig Saturdays because my wife has a store. She goes over and works the store.
Yeah.
And I get to get up and have whiteboard time and think time and on the business time.
We're going to
And
video that.
It's awesome. And so I feel a little bit weird, like when people say, "Well, what's your hobby?" I'm like,
So I'm going
My
to throw a
job, too.
curveball at you.
Yeah.
So I'm similar, but I flipped that from on those Saturdays, I'm not working on my business, I'm working on me. And so that health, I'm actually, how do I become a better me for the business, not how do I make
That's fair.
a better business for me?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, because I used to be obsessive, like, I'm not going to say like you, I'm not calling you obsessive. But I went to that, how do I become a better me today?
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of, especially in the morning, just quick self-studies and this quick self-study that I can use to be a better me, because a better me is better we type conversation.
Yeah, and a lot of that Saturday stuff that I do is learning.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
absolutely.
I'm
That's what I
really
was assuming you were
into
saying.
AI right now and just understanding how that's changing.
And you're
the
not
business
blowing up
world
your
and-
teammates or anything like
No.
that on those days. Love it.
No. So let's dive into then you got soul, service, and smile. Tell me more about what you think that.
Yeah. Well, what causes you to smile? I'm gonna start with the smile. Man, joy is real.
Yeah.
And I just had a friend of mine send me a video of, and she was jumping on a trampoline. And it was just joy. You could see it. Like, I know this person forever. I've never seen just like that kind of joy. And it hit me like, when do I actually have that kind of joy? And I know it's, for me, shooting basketball or something like that. But how do you find things that just cause you to smile? And so, like, I try not to watch like heavy drama, heavy stuff on the weekend. My wife makes fun of me. I literally start the day with putting on old TNT reruns because I want to start my day smiling now.
Yeah.
And so rather than look for news or look for, if I can watch Chuck and Shaq make fun of each other, I start laughing. I just want to start laughing.
Yeah, those guys are like who, like, if you another podcast.
Yeah.
But, I'd love to go hang out with those guys.
Just
for
watch them
one night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, just throw something out there and watch what they do with it.
Yeah. And I think a combo on this, on the soul, service, and smile, that combos with the family and friends piece of this. Purge your friend group and hang around the people that are pouring into you and that isn't all about the drama and that is such an important
Know
thing.
thyself,
'Cause
protect thyself.
If I got time to go out and spend some time with friends, the last thing I want to do is spend them with. I'm not saying that I don't want my friends to come to me when they're having
absolutely.
real problems but the gossip or the drama or the
you're
downers.
Yeah.
Be a lifter, not a leaner.
Oh, good call.
Yeah,
Not a
lifter,
leaner.
not a leaner. Last
story.
area, or it was actually the first one we went
Yep.
through, but we left it at the last, is the 8 hours of hard work.
And here's the one thing I'm going to talk about in summertime. I see a lot of time, summertime becomes busy. We talked about busy versus productive, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing this with my calendar a lot. I stole this from a friend, so I'm going to I'll give it to the team. Listening is the E and the I focus. How much of my day is spent on expenses and how much of my day is spent on investments? And in the summertime, I'm really leaning into, if I can get 6 hours of investment every day, whether I get 2 hours of expenses or 6 hour investments and I'm done for the day, I'm just really honed in on that 8 hours. To me, it's got to be 6 hours of true investment into me and the business.
Yeah.
And so rather than 8 hours of I was there, I was present, but I really wasn't making any investment back in. Because that's I see it so many times in businesses in the summertime where it's just wandering around. You see them looking at their phone. U.S. Open's on.
Yeah.
Checking whatever's going on. How the Pacers tickets, are they up or down in prices?
Yeah.
That's not being at work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, let's do this. Let's take a break.
Yep.
Okay, let's drink some pre-workout.
I like it.
Okay, get hyped up.
Holy smokes.
And then let's come back in the next episode. And I've got a framework
Let's do it.
that people can walk through that will allow them to have the 8-8-8 rule in their life for the rest of their life.
I'm ready.
You ready for that?
Let's do it.
All right, let's
See
do
you
it.
in a bit.
See ya.